covered a lot of this stuff already in the previous exercise, 2.2, but let's just go over a few things. Firstly, if we have circular brackets, it means that we're excluding those endpoints. So for instance, excluding A, excluding B. So X is greater than A, but less than B, and on a number line would show it in this way. We're going from A to B with hollow circles, meaning that we're excluding the endpoints. The opposite of that is obviously a square bracket. So here you can see we're going from A, but including A, up to infinity, and of course we can never achieve infinity, so we can't include infinity, therefore we have a circular bracket. So we show that with the endpoint for A coloured in, so it's solid, and it goes on indefinitely to the right. And X is greater than or equal to A. You can see the different variations here. Remember the idea of this implied domain. So the domain, of course, are the X values, or what goes into the rule, and the implied domain are the values that go into the rule so that the function makes sense. Alright, the best way of understanding all of this is to look at a problem. So with A, we've got function f such that the domain is from 3 to 10. We're including the 3 but excluding the 10. The y values can be anything that belong to the real set, given that f of x is equal to 2x plus 7. So 2x plus 7 is a straight line graph. What I'm interested in doing is evaluating the endpoints. So I'm going to sub 3 into f of x and work out what y is, and also sub 10 into f of x to work out what y is. And that's what I've done here. So f of 3 is 13, f of 10 is 27. So if I were to draw that, I've got that endpoint on the left, this one on the right, this one is excluded. So stating my domain was actually given to me in the rule, so that's not a big one, but I'm going from 3 to 10. And then my range, I go from the lowest y value to the highest value. I don't read it from left to right. I just go from the lowest y value to the highest y value. So the lowest y value is 13, and I'm including it. And the highest y value is 27, and that's excluded. So it's 13 to 27. The 27 is excluded. The 13 is included. B. Y is equal to the square root of x minus 3. So in exercise 2.2, we messed around a fair bit with these kind of functions, so hopefully you're able to understand that the endpoint is at here, 3, 0, and that the square root function looks like so. So this is an example where we're looking at the implied domain. So for what values of x does this rule make sense? And basically, what we've got here is x is greater than or equal to 3, or I could write it in this form. I'm starting from 3, including it, going towards infinity, and obviously excluding. The range are the y values, so we're looking at all of the y values for this. I've incorrectly written r plus. That would represent all the real numbers that are positive. It should be r plus in union with the set that contains the element 0. So you just need to amend your notes there. Apologies for that. Or you could simply write that y is greater than or equal to 0. For C, I've got a domain for the function f where we go from -5 to +6, including -5, excluding 6. Y can be any value that belongs to the real set produced by the function f of x, and that's a parabola. For this I just used CAS, so my first step was to define the function, menu actions define, and put in f of x, and then evaluate some interesting points. So f of -5 is 48, f of 6 is 15. I would then graph f of x and then obtain the turning point just by analysing the graph and looking for the minimum and hovering over it. So you can see here that I produced a turning point of 2, -1. Here's my endpoint here, -5, 48, and 6, 15. So if I look at my domain, remember for my domain I'm going from lowest x value to highest x value, so I'm going from -5, including, all the way across to 6, excluding. So I've got -5 included, 6 excluding, and my range, I go from lowest y value to highest value. So here I'm at the turning point, that is at the lowest value for the function. So I'm at -1 and I go all the way up to positive 48. So I'm including the turning point, and at -5 comma 48, that's included as well. So my range is going to be from -1 including, so therefore square bracket, all the way up to 48 including, also square bracket, and that's given here. Just for this part C, we're going to take a look at the CAS approach on the actual calculator. So I'm going to define f of x here. So menu, actions, define, and it was f of x equals x squared, take 4x plus 6, I think. Let me just double check that, plus 3. Hit enter. So it's defined. My domain, I'm going from -5 to 6. So let's evaluate what f of -5 is. And f of 6, sorry. Alright, so I've got my endpoints. And now what I can do is just go and graph it. So if I go to my home screen, I'll create a graph. Put in f of x. You can see that I've got my various points, and I can change that window setting if I wish, but I'm really just after the turning point here. So I'm just going to go menu, analyze graph, minimum, go to left, hover over to the right, and you can see it produces 2 minus 1. So I really now have everything that I need, because I know that at f of -5, that's going to be over here, and I know that f of 6 is going to be over here, and so I'm pretty sure that I can create this graph and from it produce my domain and range. My domain restriction was that x was between -5 and 6, so what I could also do is go back here and redefine the function. So I could just go up, oops, and copy that. And so I've just pasted that down the bottom here. But what I can do now is apply a domain restriction to it. So I can go control equals and put in this straight line. Alright, so that's given that's what that means. So f of x equals that. Given that, we are between -5 and we're including the -5. X and x is less than 6, so let me just double check that. We're going from -5 including it up to 6 excluding it. So x is, so as you can see here, x, and that's the wrong way about. Yeah, no, sorry, that was correct. What am I doing? Alright, so x is greater than or equal to -5, and x is less than 6. So there's my domain restriction. Go back over to here, and what I'll do is I will take a look at my window settings. Go higher, go up to 50, go OK. And you can see now that I've got my graph there, so they're the endpoints. So that point there obviously is my -5, 48, and this point here is my 6, 15, and I've got my turning point. And I know those exact locations for the endpoints because I've subbed them in here.